Okay, peeps, welcome back. So today we're going to be talking about final dip buying opportunities that may be coming on the grayscale trusts. With that being said, let's get it. So Bitcoin, as you guys can see here, we talked about this previously. There was a risk that Bitcoin could drop into this cup and handle pattern. Bitcoin basically has 1 day left to be able to close above this resistance zone. If it does not, it might kind of chop down into this flag here, which is the handle portion of the cup and handle. I kind of suspect that Bitcoin's probably going to bottom out roughly around the bottom of the zone at about 59K. If that happens, then that gives plenty of opportunity to buy grayscale and altcoins on the dip at cheaper prices. But do keep in mind the halving is only a month away. Generally speaking, when the Bitcoin dominance breaks down, that's when alts start popping off. And we'll go over that in a minute. But this could be the very last opportunity that we have before the bull run actually starts to get in on cheap prices. So as you guys can see here, it kind of so Bitcoin kind of faltered a little bit on the weekly. We broke down. It looks like we came in almost exactly perfectly into this little flag pattern or handle of the cup and handle. So we'll have to see how that plays out in the coming days. But you guys can see that a lot of the altcoins that we're following have had some pretty large drops. I mean, pick your poison. We are basically going to still be DCAing into alts and the grayscale trusts. So for us, this is actually a good deal. We're going to be buying some of these today and tomorrow, as a matter of fact, and maybe even into the week. So we'll see. But we'll just take a look at a few pullback levels here. This is going to be a relatively short video because we have another one coming on the grayscale trust tomorrow. So if LTCN pulls back, it could. We've talked about this. We'll talk. Actually, we're going to be talking about this tomorrow in the video, but you guys will see what I mean. So it could pull back into $23 here and then pop to the upside. Very similar to how. Let's see if I can find it. So kind of similar to how you see here, like you see this green candle busted up. Tried to hit the top of this at that point resistance zone, push back down, and then boom, absolutely lifted off straight out of it. Something like that could happen. We could get a pullback. If we do, it's probably going to pull back to $15. That's a pretty cheap price, I would say. So, I mean, it doesn't have to pull back to 15, but it's a possibility that it could. If so, you're looking at about a 40% discount. If the grayscale trusts are going to pull back into this upcoming week, it's going to happen starting Monday, I would say, unless Bitcoin recovers by then. We'll just have to wait and see. So we're only going to take a look at the main ones. We're not going to look at every grayscale trust here, but very similar thing with HZEN. So if this thing pulls back, which I'm not really sure if it's going to or not, reason I say that is because you have a pop here, and then we retested that at that point resistance. And you guys see we have this massive breakout. It could do something similar, pop above the resistance, pull back into it, and then bang straight up. But if it pulls back, it's going to pull back to somewhere around this $4 level. So we'll take a look and see how deep of a drop that could potentially be. You'd be looking at roughly around 40-ish%, similar to LTCN. BCHG, this one is obvious. If it pulls back, it's probably going to pull back here to this support. So somewhere between roughly about 7 to 770, somewhere in there. And you can see we have former resistance here. It's sitting basically almost in line with the middle of that control bar. And you have these candles here indicating that this was a swing level high, which means if it pulls back into that, that's probably going to hold as support. And ETCG, this is another one that we just bought recently. You guys can see a potential for a double top playing out here. That's a bearish pattern. No guarantee it's going to play out, but we'll just have to wait and see. So if it pulls back, it's not going to pull back that much. It'll pull back to, I'd say, roughly around $13, maybe a little bit lower, wick down, and then bounce back up after that point, which is not that much of a drop. I mean, it's 15%. That's pretty small compared to what could happen on LTCN and HZEN. As for BCHG, the pullback on this one would be a measured move of roughly about 30%, so not terrible. the other thing that we want to point out real quick in this video is the Bitcoin dominance. So generally speaking, the way that this works and the reason why this is relevant is because all of the grayscale trusts, with the exception of GBTC, are considered to be altcoin trusts. Okay, they're not Bitcoin, so anything besides Bitcoin is considered to be an altcoin. Just so y'all know, I mean, Ethereum is kind of in between, so to speak, but you guys know what I mean. So basically, anything not Bitcoin is considered to be an alt of some sort. So the Bitcoin dominance, when it does break down below this level here and gets a firm rejection off resistance, breaks this trend line here and then falls off a cliff. That's generally speaking when money's going to flow from Bitcoin into the altcoins. Okay, that is when the biggest move, in my opinion, is going to happen on the alts. Well, it will happen on the alts, I should say. It's most likely going to happen on the alts, but there is a high probability that it could start pushing up the grayscale trust to new all-time highs pretty quickly. So a couple of things to note here, that this generally does not happen until after Bitcoin has had its halving and then reached its all-time high. Okay, so the halving has to occur first, then the all-time high has to occur, and then once that occurs, Bitcoin kind of chops around sideways, doesn't do anything, or kind of chops down and sideways. That's when altcoins start blasting off to the moon. As you guys can see here, we'll go back a little bit. So May 2020 is kind of when the halving took place. You guys can see kind of a breakdown of the Bitcoin dominance here. So May 2020 was the halving, and then we saw a breakdown. So we saw kind of a summer DeFi altcoin season right there, but the big one didn't happen until after Bitcoin hit its high. So Bitcoin hits all-time high roughly around January, February, March of 2021. As soon as we got a break out of this microphone pattern and a break of the trend line, it just capitulated completely. So while Bitcoin was still chopping around up at highs, altcoins were popping off and the Bitcoin dominance dropped off a cliff. So that's kind of what's going on with that. I'd have to go back and look and see when Bitcoin's halving was in 2016 or 17, but as you guys can see, very similar thing here. So once we broke this level, basically from March until pretty much the peak of the bull run in December of 2017, we saw a massive altcoin season. And of course, Bitcoin was going up at that time. But money, the point of this is that money will, at some point in time after the halving, around the time that Bitcoin tops out or shortly after that, altcoins will blast off to the moon. Bitcoin dominance will crash. And then that's when we'll see the biggest gains in alts and or the grayscale trusts. So this is just a quick update before the Monday market open. Just so you guys know that Bitcoin is actually pulling back, and we'll take a quick look at that as well before we close out here. So you can see pretty substantial pullbacks on Bitcoin, 5% on the day, which is a pretty large drop. But again, this is kind of to be expected. We told you guys that there was a risk of a pullback or a sell-off into the halving. Okay, that generally does happen. Again, because that's kind of just the way that the cycles work. Okay, so you could think of it like buy the rumor, sell the news. Okay, everybody's bullish on the Bitcoin halving until it happens, and then they want to sell the news. That's how like a lot of these miners and probably even the whales kind of treat this thing. And then once it has its halving, it's sold off to relatively cheap levels compared to where we are now. Then that's when you see the next big move up. So I would say it's probably going to bottom out somewhere around 59K. It could happen as soon as 63. Could go all the way down to 53K or even as low as 48K. I think there's a strong likelihood we could hold this 59,000 support. We'll just have to wait and see. But the other thing I want to point out here is the 4-hourly time frame. So we just posted this on X, but we're going to show you guys live here. So triple death cross. Okay, so Bitcoin had a close below all of the EMAs, which is bearish, came back, retested, and then sold off again. Came back, retested, sold off again. This is generally how we would day trade something if we were going to look at this. So it's very clearly bearish, at least in the immediate short term. Does it mean that we're at a bull market top? No. There's never been a bull market top on Bitcoin or altcoins until after the halving. Okay, it's never happened. So, but the point I want to make here is that each time we hit the EMAs, we bounced. So as you guys can see here, we'll scroll back a little bit. You can see a bounce back here in February. So we tested January, February, bounced, took off to the upside. Kind of tested here again in February, March, or I guess just February in 2024. So about a year later, we retested again. And then we tested it one more time in February, March. And then we had that sell-off. So the last time that we had a sell-off and a death cross, you guys can see was way back here, basically pretty much right at the end of 2023. So the Bitcoin bottom was roughly around, I think it was October of 2022. So this thing had been moving up for a while, but as soon as we had this death cross from the swing high before the death cross took place to the low, you guys can see we went down roughly about 21%. So if the same thing was to play out here, we'll do a very similar thing. And it seems pretty evident at this point we're going to get that full triple death cross. Then basically Bitcoin, if we were to get about a 20% retrace, lines up perfectly with the bottom of this resistance flipped into support at about 59,000 or so. So we'll just have to see if that plays out. But anyways, this is just a quick update on the crypto markets and Grayscale. I am kind of expecting at least somewhat of a pullback in these ETFs in the coming days. I think that we still have yet to see the biggest moves in crypto. A lot of these have not even come close to their previous all-time highs, and the same is true for altcoins. And Bitcoin dominance has not broken down yet, which is why I am fully convinced that we have not seen a true parabolic alt season yet. We also have not seen Bitcoin do its true parabolic run either, because if it topped out, it would probably be somewhere between 150 to 250,000 per Bitcoin minimum. And all of this should take place after the halving. So anyways, hope you all enjoyed this content. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see y'all later. Peace.